What's up and welcome back to today's trade recap video journal. So today was once again kind of a bittersweet day because we had one very small win on YM, so on my Lucid account. We can also see this here. So we had a very small win of $173 after commissions and fees, 176, which puts us at the 5 minimum winning days and like a positive balance that I need to have to withdraw my first ever payout from a prop firm. So which I still have to wait for like 1 hour and 10 minutes. It's end of day after the stock market closes. So this is kind of a pretty monumental day. I've been at this point many times now. So with Apex, when I'm still trading Apex, I was very close. I had like 2,500 something dollars before I went on a losing streak and pretty much lost the account or with funding ticks. So this time it's quite nice that I don't have to reach such a high balance before I can withdraw a payout. But regardless, let's go into the trade recap itself. Let's start with YM as per usual. So the levels I had drawn out for today, obviously, I don't want to talk about it because I don't know if the YouTube algo will strike me because I'm like a news reporter, but I guess you know what happened over the weekend. If you're a trader, it's something you should keep an eye on like the news, and what is happening in the world. So obviously, because the stuff that happened on the weekend, we had this huge gap to the downside or like before the market opened. Technically, obviously, this is futures. So this is from like the overnight session, and then the levels I had drawn on this for the session that I was interested in was this previous month low, because as we saw, we gapped down, pushed up, retested previous day low. Let me get my brush. So we retested the previous day low from Friday, and then we had a very strong sell-off, almost tapping into this level. So this was, if you go to the monthly chart, so this was not February monthly low, but this was January monthly low. But still interesting, obviously, first month of the year would price kind of like retrace, because on the monthly we had this crazy doji. So I wouldn't be surprised if we maybe have some retracement, maybe even get a down close candle before we rally higher up again. So I had the previous month low because I was like, man, if we break this, then it's gonna be downtown. And the next level to the upside I have was obviously previous day low, as per usual, weekly open. So this is the dotted line where the market opened at midnight, and then to the upside, and this is overlapping because this is obviously from Friday. So this line is from TradingView itself. This was previous day close, so from Friday. Obviously, this also then turned to the upside close of the gap that was created. Then for higher targets, I had the 4-hour fill, which I did not believe that we will hit today, and didn't, just for marked up general purposes, previous day high and then previous week high. So this was the high from Friday, and then this is the high we had from Thursday of last week. I did not believe that we'll get into this, but I still, out of like new habits, I had it on my chart. So getting into, let's go to the 5 minutes and then go to the trade recap, replay. So what I had, or the trade setups I had in mind before coming into this session, is obviously gap down, retested previous day high or previous day low, had a huge sell-off, and then we were inside kind of this range right before market opened. So we were hovering around the weekly open. So I was like, okay, as long as we can hold the weekly open and we do not continue to sell off anymore, I am interested into looking for longs into previous day lows, or potentially even into the gap fill. Because yes, usually what I've seen happen is if we have a huge gap like this, maybe price would have, sell off on Monday, Tuesday doesn't happen, then we have Wednesday, maybe some red folder news, this push up like crazy, blah, 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 you know the game. But for today, because this was like pretty hot geopolitical news, I was like, there's a high chance that we get this gap fill immediately. So that was what I was looking for. And so the first 5-minute candle opened, and I was like, this almost engulfed all of this range. So I was like, I'm very much heavily interested into taking a very soon continuation trade. So I knew this was the 5-minute opening range high, and that's where I switched to the 1-minute time frame. I'm not switch. I have on TradingView, I used the 5-minute, and then on TraderBait, I watched the 1-minute. So I was like, the moment, because in the past week I was playing it very aggressive, I was like, let's this week first wait for the good old classic, break, retest, and then looking for a continuation to the upside, which pretty much happened today. So we had the close above the 5-minute opening range. Then we had a doji. At this point, I was not considering looking for a continuation trade because I wanted to see a low put in first. I wanted to see at least one low below this doji candle to enter on the next high that will be created. Next candle still pushed. Then we had the first down close candle, almost perfectly retesting the 5-minute opening range high, which also was the high of the range we had during the overnight session. So I was like, man, as long as we're holding this, we are Gucci. I am looking for the gap fill. So what I did was, I think not this candle. Yeah, so this candle barely didn't create a new high. So the high of this candle was 16. This was also 16. So I not tagged in on this candle, but on this candle, I think I was 42. Nope, that's where I still did not enter. Technically, to my rules, I should have entered here, enter here, stop loss below these previous candles low. Whoops up. But I think I waited for a little bit because maybe it was ES or YM. I was watching it. I was like, there's like a divergence or something. Maybe wait for the next candle. Maybe we can get a close above. But then the next candle pushed still very strong. So I was like, I'm not going to wait and like miss this trade. And then let's just check where did I got tagged in. 40 was my fill. So 640. So as you can see, pretty much way higher than 16s, which have been like the ideal entry. Oh yeah, so I was probably looking at taking a trade above this candle high to be like very sure. And then since I trade 3 micros, I have an 80-point stop loss. So stop loss was pretty perfect. Obviously right at the 5-minute opening range high, but below all these candles. So the moment we start pushing down again, this trade would have been invalidated anyway. So let's say that I got tagged in and immediately got down close candle in here into the opening range, and the 5-minute opening range, this would have mattered to me anymore. So yeah, target was the gap fill to the upside. Obviously I had the previous day low in mind. I was like, this is going to be a very strong resistance. This was also overnight high, but I was like, if we take out the overnight high strongly, go above previous day low, then I think we're totally fine. And this is maybe where a longer breath could have been in play. But today we also had red folder news during the session. So we had ISM manufacturing, PMI, and usually I've seen this create a pretty strong spike candle from time to time. Obviously today with all the stuff that's happening, I was like, I don't even know if investors even remotely care about this at this point. But I saw that we kind of bounced overnight high. We didn't close strong above. So I was like, not sure if this trade is really that valid anymore. I really wanted to see some strong acceleration to the upside because I didn't want price to just like bounce back, consolidate, maybe like getting wicked out and then it moves to the upside. So I was trading this pretty aggressively, and I believe, where did I get taken out? No, this is my fund and future. Almost at the 700, so psychological level of 700. So I was like, anything below this candle or next candle, 700 psychological level, if price dips below, then I'm not interested in this trade anymore. And this pretty much is what happened. So price for a minute just came down. I think it retested basically the high of this swing point, which was my entry, and then went to the upside, hitting the full take profit. But as you can see, this would have taken me quite some more time. So this would have been another 20 minutes of being in the trade while the red folder news were created here at 4. So this was obviously 4 p.m. As you can see, it was a down close candle. So the overnight high was pretty strong resistance today. So that's why I was a bit more, hesitant of being like, do I want to stay in this trade for this long? Technically, this candle also opened a bit more erratically, but obviously it wasn't like the crazy downside candle I maybe had in mind. And also at this point, I was at a 1-to-1. So if you maybe the first candle would have, or the first few candles would have pushed above previous day low, then I would have stayed in this trade, even though with the red folder news, because I would have had more wiggle room to the downside. But honestly, it wouldn't have been like anything crazy for 160 points. Obviously, maybe not in the first 1 hour candle, but 2-3 candles. That price, as you can see, this was also 180 points. within a matter of 4 minutes. So I was like, I don't want to take my chance here because a retest of 5-minute opening range high is pretty common. So yeah, that's why I got tagged out pretty early, just $170 on YM on the session. But I said technically still puts me into having a payout with Lucid. And then let's jump into NQ. Let's exit replay mode for a second. So here you can see on Mafu, I just cannot catch a break. We had previous week, on Thursday, we had a 2-hour trade. 2 losing trades on Friday because of too much impatience. So basically gave it all away. And then today we had another -1 hour trade, which puts us in a pretty steep drawdown. So we just have 3 more trades on this account, on this funded account before it's gone. But I still have faith. I'm still going to trade regardless. But this also goes to show that it's actually for me quite nice to trade both the YM and NQ, because maybe there's some weeks and times where one pair or like one instrument is trending better for me than the other, and then I kind of even out the losses and wins. So that's why I plan on building a set of prop firm accounts on YM and then on NQ. All right, so for levels that I had here on the charts, where we still have this Nvidia earnings gap from last week. I was totally not interested in this. I was like, there's no chance we're gonna get tapped this previous week high. Also not interesting. So technically this was from 2 weeks ago, I think, the previous week high. Then this was the actual previous week high. No, this was, sorry, excuse me. So this was from the actual last week. Then this one was from the week before that. But as we can see, multiple touch points on the 1 hour. This is some pretty strong point of resistance at this point. Was like, I'm not expecting price to just crush it, because it's also technically just 2 weeks above. I'm not trying not to go too far back into price action, but I thought this was still a valid point. Then we had, for the same 2 previous week highs, the 2 previous week lows. So this was, so this was the low on Monday we had, Tuesday, which was also Monday's low, as well as Friday's low. So I was like, this is some pretty important point in price action. And then this was from this previous week low, was from the week before that. The red dashed line is the overnight low, dashed green is the overnight high. Obviously also in Q we had this crazy gap with the previous day close also being the high of the gap fill. And then we also had previous month's low. To be honest, it was just because I saw it on YM. I was like, maybe this will also be an interesting play. On NQ, obviously for both, it didn't matter. Both went to the gap fill today. So let's jump into the 5 minute, because I just draw higher time frame levels on the 1 hour. But then for intraday, I look at the 5, and execution I do on the 1 minute. So candle opened, obviously NQ pushed like crazy, way better than YM. So I was like, there's 100% a continuation play in the books here, because obviously this engulfed pretty much, I don't know, more than half of the overnight session. So at this point, I was looking at the 1 minute time frame on Tradeovate. So this was the opening range high, obviously from on the 5 minute. And then let's see, I was also pretty much textbook trade, I believe. So we kind of creeped above, then we failed it. We closed below, had a nice pullback, but obviously these pullback candles are not as big as the push to the upside. And then we had some very nice consolidation. Technically, I could have entered here for a continuation play immediately, but we're just below the opening range high. So I was like, let's just wait for getting above this. And let me check. So I entered on the 45 minutes candle. So not the next one, not this one. Yeah, so this was the 44 candle. So this was a very strong bullish candle. We still closed below, but I was like, okay, if we get above all of this consolidation here, all right, I was like, that's gonna be a valid play to the upside, and that's pretty much what happened. Got tagged in somewhere around here, I got tagged in at 54.75, so right around the high of the previous candle. And then because I trade 3 micros on the Nasdaq, I can have a 42-point stop loss. So this is interesting. For this trade, it was not ideal, because obviously a better stop loss placement would have been the low of all these candles, of all this consolidation, okay? Because obviously if price like comes up and then pushes to the downside, takes out all these lows, I'm like, I was wrong anyway, who cares? But for this one, obviously it was not ideal. If I would have played it aggressively, entered on the first new high that was ever created on the push up, then obviously my stop loss would have gone below all these candles, which would have been more ideal, but it's all hindsight talking. So price pushed to the upside pretty nicely for a second, and then this was the first time I was like, this is not looking good, because we had this kind of like engulfing bearish candle, and also like just same as on YM. The overnight high was a pretty strong point of resistance at the beginning, and then obviously what was better on YM is the first push was way stronger from above my entry. On NQ it was staying very close, it was just chopping around. Excuse me, I did not say that, but target was also the gap fill here. I was not expecting to go anything higher than that. And then I believe, yeah, I just got taken out here. Yeah, so price just, reversed, retested this consolidation. This is what I meant with playing an aggressive would have played out today, because these lows were never touched during like the first minutes, 30 minutes of the session and afterwards. So this was always a protected low, which we never revisited. And then we had this is already we're coming close to the 4-hour candle. It's 4 p.m. Sorry, because I live in Germany, for me it's the 4 p.m. candle. So we had the 4 p.m. candle. This one absolutely tanked, but technically still didn't go below the low of this candle, so would have been totally fine. And then we bounced back up, and then we went for the gap fill, but obviously the first, maybe almost the gap fill, but obviously this was the first very good move of the session. Actually crazy momentum. Old Roman would have traded this in a breakout fashion, but to be honest, my mental health just couldn't take these breakout trades anymore. So I'm waiting for these like continuation trades. I always use high time frame levels. Then I use for like obviously like points of interest. And then I use just the 5-minute opening range for like more intraday confirmation, and then execute on the 1 minute. But yeah, that was the trade idea for YM. Still would have been a 2.27 hour trade, which did not happen. Still fine. And yeah, this was the session. I hope you found something interesting. If you have any question, leave some comments down below, and otherwise I see you tomorrow, hopefully with a winning trade on Mafu, but if not, that's also fine.